One of the greatest adversities that we as men who are husbands, fathers, and businessmen, one of our greatest adversities is to overcome our willingness to settle for so little. Now think about that statement as it relates to where you are in your life. A willingness to settle for so little. In this session, I'm going to share with you some information that I discovered, over 26 years ago at what was a turning point in my life. I had to come to the desperate decision that I just couldn't continue living the way I was living. I had to come to terms with the fact that I was settling for so much less than God had intended for me. This made an negative impact on a lot of people around me. Now listen, I wasn't a bad guy. I was just on a roll chasing I just didn't have my priorities right. And I have learned painfully that desperation, and I learned this back then, the gift of desperation, that desperation can become the foundation of a man's willingness. You know, the definition of the word principle, a principle is an undeniable truth, and there are 4 principles that are at the core of everything I do and share with others. Those principles are, number 1 is the principle of commitment, number 2, the principle of optimism, number 3, the principle of resilience, and number 4, the principle of empowerment. My name is Mark Mascola. I want to welcome you to Masculine to the Core and the Man in the Arena podcast. And when you hear me talk about masculine to the core, I just laid out 4 principles that are the acronym for the word core. Men who are committed, optimistic, resilient, and empowered. Masculine to the Core is an alliance of men whose primary purpose is to be defined by their masculine walk with God. Today, we're going to talk about men who live by a code that I call the 5 commitments. A commitment is principle number 1, and commitment means to be dedicated to a cause. One of man's core desires, one of my desires, one of your desires, is to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Again, Masculine to the Core is an alliance of men whose primary purpose is to be defined by their masculine walk with God. I'm glad you're here. Let's talk about commitment number 1. Commitment number 1 is actually part of a 5-part series that I'm doing. This session, number 1, is part of this 5-part series on the commitments. Commitment number 1 is to be willing. Back to my original statement. One of the greatest adversities that we as men who are husbands, fathers, businessmen, success-driven men, high achievers, high performers, one of the greatest adversities to overcome is our willingness to settle for so little. You know, God created us with an unlimited amount of potential. Now, I know you can turn that into whatever you want it to mean, but you were brought into this world with an unlimited amount of God-given potential. But back to the statement, overcoming our willingness to settle for so less. Look at your own life right now. You know, one of the greatest things that we can do to create positive, accelerated change in our lives is to take an assessment of where we are, right? Ask yourself the question, what are you settling for in your life? And that comes in 3 parts, right? Personal, professional, and spiritual. What are you settling for in your personal life? When it comes to your marriage, do you strive to make your marriage and your commitment to your wife what God intended for that relationship? Now, let me ask you, does your wife know and feel that commitment? Do you tell her? Do you tell her often? Does she know that? Does she feel that in her heart of hearts, that your commitment to her is what God intended for your marriage? How about your fatherhood? Are you the man who understands the great gift and the grand responsibility of leading your children to and on their walk with God? Do your actions as a father, do they reflect that intention? How about your physical health? Do you care for the temple that houses your spirit the way God expects you to? Tough questions, right? But the most positive thing that we can do in our lives is be willing, as we search for the answers on our masculine walk with God, is to ask ourselves the tough questions and then search for the answers. How about your professional life? Does what you do for a career allow you to be the protector and the provider for your family? Do you have enough free time to be the husband and the father that your wife and your kids deserve you to be? Or does your job control like mine did when it led me into the ditch of addiction because I was just so committed to success that all I did was work. My career controlled all of my waking and most of my sleeping hours. It actually took me away from the very things that I wanted most, to be a husband and a father. Are you passionate about your career? Do you carry that into your life every single day? And what about spiritually? I mean, where are you as your willingness to settle for so much less in your spiritual life? If asked, would those people around you say yes if they were asked if you were a godly man? Do you live a life that honors your Creator? Again, these are tough questions, but our lives are directly related to the answers to the toughest questions that we're willing to ask ourselves. How would your family answer that question if asked if you were a godly man? How would God answer that question? Do you surround yourself with an alliance of men who support you and you support them spiritually? Again, one of our greatest adversities is to overcome our willingness to settle for so little. Let's go to the Bible, Isaiah 1:19. If you are willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land. Now listen, that has nothing to do with sitting down and having a meal. Listen to it again, Isaiah 1:19. If you are willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land, meaning you will prosper. Psalms 51, verse 12. Uphold me with a willing spirit. Are you willing to say that in your prayers every single day? Because again, commitment number one is to be willing. Willingness means that you are prepared to do something. Notice it doesn't say doing it. It just says you're prepared for it. Looking at your life, are you prepared to make some changes? The harsh reality is that what's going on in your life is the direct result of your willingness to accept it. Let me put both hands in the air. That's me as well. Or your willingness to not accept it. Most men only become willing, and I just shared with you my story just a minute ago. Most men only become willing when they are faced with a crisis, right? Good enough is a bad disease in our society today. Just barely making the grade as a husband, as a father, as a businessman, as an impactful leader in your home, in your community. You see, willingness is the key to our personal, professional, and spiritual growth. Now, this is beyond success. What we talk about here at Masculine to the Core is to become fulfillment driven, knowing that your personal life, your professional life, and most of all your spiritual life, they all three matter, and they matter all the time. You see, the key to your life is the key of willingness. It either keeps you locked up as a prisoner, a willingness to say good enough is good enough, or it's the key that frees you from that prison. Like it says in the song from the Eagles that my wife just absolutely loves. Now, oftentimes it happens that we live our lives in chains and we never even know we have the key. My brother, the key is called willingness. So here, I'm going to give you a little exercise. I want to challenge you to do this. I want to invite you to step into this circle, because doing exercises like this, you can do this in your head, but it's more powerful if you take a minute and write it down. I've been doing this for 26 years now, and this is a powerful exercise that can truly help you at a turning point in your life. So here's 3 questions. What's one thing in your personal life that you're no longer willing to settle for? And I'd write the question out and then answer it. What is one thing in my personal life, relationships, physical health, right, that I am no longer willing to settle for? Question number 2, what is one thing in my professional life I am no longer willing to settle for? And then what is one thing in my spiritual life that I am no longer willing to settle for? In the next session, we're going to discuss what to do with your answer, but answer those questions for yourself. My prayer is that what we talk about here at Masculine to the Core and the Man in the Arena podcast, I hope it inspires you to be the husband, the father, the businessman, and the impactful leader in your home and in your community. If it inspires you, step into this arena. Again, this is for men who want to be defined by their masculine walk with God. Be sure and subscribe so you can have access to the next video in this series. The series is called A Man's 5 Commitments. Commitment number 1 we talked about today is to become willing. Most men are not Don't be willing to stay stuck where you are. Be willing to do what most men want, to have what most men don't. Personally, professionally, spiritually, that's what the game of fulfillment is all about. Till next time, go be the best and most powerful version of you. You know, the man God created in his image, in the likeness, the man who is defined by his masculine walk with God. Have a great day. You absolutely deserve it. Bye for now.